Hello everyone, welcome to Press Start. This is the new channel, new show, new everything that we're doing. Welcome. I'm Luke.
I'm Jacob.
I'm Tammy.
We've been talking about this for a long time. Thank you for coming over and checking out the new channel. Make sure to like and subscribe so you get notified of all of the new stuff coming. This is where all of the news discussions, topical conversations, kind of funky, weird videos, everything like that is going to be coming to this centralized location. So make sure to subscribe so you see everything moving forward. But with that, we're here to talk about some video games. So Cyberpunk 2077's launch has obviously been kind of a mess, and it's still an ongoing train wreck that just occurs very, very slowly. And they've put out a new apology from Martin Iwinski, who is the CEO and co-founder. Is that his title? He's the CEO, and I think he's a co-founder.
That sounds right.
It was kind of weird. You guys watched it, right?
It was fine. I don't know what it's damage control. I never look at damage control like that works. I never watch a YouTube apology video after someone does something stupid. I'm like, he won me back. Once you do something stupid, you have to prove yourself with your work, not with an apology and an explanation of why your work was bad. So instead of focusing on what you messed up on, focus on making Cyberpunk better.
Agreed. Followed by your actions. Make
That's
the
right.
game work.
You're in Warsaw. Warsaw, a better video game.
It would have been a better apology if he was like sat on the kitchen floor crying.
Like Trisha, whatever her name is. Just,
Yeah.
I can't even right now. I can't.
Why didn't you like my video game? I worked so hard on my video game.
Honestly,
It was an RPG.
big world, huge
Robots.
blades, arms, and stuff. Choppy.
You can have sex. What more do you want? You want it to work.
We want it to work, and it
That's
didn't.
right.
To work.
Point is, I think we were all kind of disappointed by the apology. Not because like we're glad he apologized, but it seemed like there was a lot of deflection. He also straight up said that they knew the state that the console versions were in. They sent it off to manufacturing to get the discs printed, and they were just hoping that they could fix it by launch, by the day zero patch, which could be that he honestly was being told by developers and team leads that they thought they could get it done. But it also could be indicative of something that happens at EA a ton, which is that you have executives who have no idea how games work or game development works. They don't play games. They're just developers. They're businessmen. And they're just expecting you to figure it out to put the game together. You know, games made by gamers usually work out. Games made by businessmen often don't. So we're glad he had the apology, but it left a weird taste in all of our mouths, which not what you want. You don't want a weird taste.
I constantly have a weird taste in my mouth, so for that to be layered on top of with just a video I hear, not only made me feel uncomfortable, but made me kind of upset. I had to drink a whole lot of water to get rid of that.
Yeah, but that's medical, Jacob. We're talking metaphorical.
Well, you know, medical, metaphorical, potato, whatever you want to have.
Fair enough.
That was witty banter we just had. We just did witty banter. Yeah.
Now, right after this, Jason Schreier put out an article on Bloomberg where he discussed interviews that he had conducted with roughly 20 developers, some of whom used to work at CD Projekt Red, some of whom currently work there. All of them, except for I think a couple, asked for anonymity because of course they don't want to be fired. But in general, it seems as though this was a product of mismanagement, and it was also a result of perhaps an earned, perhaps an unearned sense of self-worth and expertise. Basically, whenever there was an issue, the developers just would throw it off and say, we'll figure it out because after all, we made The Witcher 3, which is fair, they did, but also that's not really a good excuse to not do stuff or to have things broken in your game, to just say, we'll figure it out, we did it before, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like it's stupid.
Bethesda made Home Alone for the NES. If that was their gold standard, we wouldn't have anything else from them ever. Anyone want to add anything to that? That's true.
They actually made Home Alone.
They
for the
made
NES?
Home Alone for the NES, and I believe NES and Sega Genesis.
Wow.
Or maybe Master System, I don't remember.
What did you do in it? Did you like
You
play
played
through
as-
the film?
In Home Alone, you play as Kevin McAllister defending your home from
Alone.
evil robber Joe Pesci. And while there, the game has this strange isometric view kind of thing going on where you can go upstairs, but it's on the NES, so it's 2D, so isometric's the wrong word for it. Basically, it plays like garbage, and it's not very fun, and I can't recommend it. It's also like 30 years old. So...
Nice.
But the point stands. They moved on.
They moved on.
They said,
CD
"Let's do
Projekt
better."
Red, make Fortnite 2. Come on.
Not sure that's how that works. Cammy, what do you think of all of this? Because you finished, didn't you platinum it? Did you platinum it?
Platinum did it.
That's
Jesus.
insane. Congrats. What, I mean, if
For
anybody's
having
played
a
the
lot
game
of
enough.
time and mental illness.
Yeah, exactly. Like you've had time to delve into it. What's your perspective?
I think the story, because I've written up the story for you for the critique.
Mhm.
I love the story. And if that's what a game was, if it was just story, I would say Cyberpunk is incredible and everyone should play it, but it's not. And I think that's what CD Projekt Red forgot.
Mhm.
Yeah, they made The Witcher and it was fantastic because everyone loved the story. And yeah, Cyberpunk's story is also amazing. But it's fundamentally broken. And I've platinumed a lot of games that I've had to put a lot of time in. I enjoy doing it. Never before has a game fought me so hard to try and get me to not finish it, to not platinum it. Things not working, things glitching, whole missions just not showing up. Like I tweeted that once I platinumed it, the game crashed.
Like, how appropriate.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty
that's
fit.
a common problem
Huh.
that has been written about. That wasn't just a fluky thing for me. Like, this game cannot cope with itself. And it's such a shame.
It is,
could
and
be so good.
I think as I've been preparing for the critique and writing down tons of thoughts and like going back through missions to test it to see what different options and branching is available and possible, like really putting a lot of pressure on the game, which is something we do all the time when we review or critique a game. Like, it's basically a table. The game is a table, and you're gonna throw as much crap on there as you can to see if it's sturdy enough to hold it. Especially with an RPG, you want to make sure that it can withstand any sort of choice, variation, deviation, weird motivation, everything that you could throw at it. And Larian Studios is a great example of somebody that does this fantastically well with a game like Divinity Original Sin 2. Pretty much whatever you can do in the game, there is some sort of state that they've designed based on that conclusion. So if you go off, and so like there was one time when I wanted to go and like steal somebody's fruit, so I stole the fruit, and like multiple characters died in the ensuing battle and fight. And then 3 hours later, I'd be talking to somebody and they're like, oh, I know about this guy, I think he could help you. And then I had a dialogue option to be like, oh, about that, I'm sorry, he's dead. Like, they took everything into consideration, and that's what you want out of an RPG. But it just seems like people were expecting that level of quality from Cyberpunk when even The Witcher 3 didn't have that robust a role-playing system in it, which I think people also forget. Like, The Witcher 3 is a fantastic story, and it has very engrossing mechanics and a world that's fantastically well built and well written, so you can really get into it. But it's not like you're going to go in there, design your own character, and murder a bunch of civilians because you want to role play as a serial killer. Like, you're playing Geralt, that's what you're doing. And in this case, you're playing V. You have some choices, perhaps more in terms of motivations and how you can treat people, but in general, it's the same kind of thing, which is why I think Cyberpunk 2077 is much more of a Witcher game than people were expecting. if all of that makes sense.
I think a lot of the problem comes down to as well how CD Projekt Red advertised it. Because they made such a big deal out of you can be a corpo and you can be a street kid and you can be a nomad. That means next to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it changes a few minor dialogue bits in side quests. That's it. It has no impact outside of the first maybe half an hour.
I agree, and it's just strange to see all of these ideas laid out like very flatly, and then some of them are super deep and detailed. Like I don't care what anyone says, I think the body mods are pretty well done. There's like, I think there's an issue with how they balanced it, so some of them are stupid expensive, and I think most people are never going to get to the point where they have like 45,000 eddies to spend on some of these mods, which is unfortunate because I think the game would be more fun if people had access to them earlier on, things like that. But in general, like those are pretty fleshed out, and there are a lot of options for customizing how your character engages in combat, whether it's stealth and everything. So in terms of an action RPG, it's really solid. But then there's other pieces like those backgrounds where you play the first 30 minutes, then you have the same cutscene for everybody, except now you might know who some of the characters in the flashbacks are, or I guess the cutaways are. But other than that, like you'll get occasional like corpo dialogue, and you just say something like, I've been there, I know what it's like. And they're like, yeah, I bet. And then the conversation carries on like regular. It's so weird because some of it's fleshed out, and then some of it is just sitting in that like original kernel of an idea, and it just hasn't been given time to ruminate, and it's really too bad.
Well, yeah, to do that, you basically got to make 3 games for each story outcome, which is why a lot of those open world RPGs just have a starting point, regardless of how you play or what you make your backstory. It's like Skyrim. You have your starting point. You're being hauled away to, spoiler alert for the first 45 seconds of Skyrim. If you haven't played it yet, put it on screen. Spoiler alert. When you're going to get your head chopped off with Ulfric Stormcloak and all the dudes, you make your character, and it's like, well, you're here. That's your starting point. Then you can go do whatever the hell you want. Having the 3 different ones, I don't want to say it was misleading, because you do have 3 different starting points, but also in order to get to that point where each one feels unique, you're basically making 3 different full stories.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably where they started and what they wanted to do. But for one reason or another, they got to the point where they were like, you know what, it's too much. It's too much. And that's why, like, I've told a lot of people, they were like, they needed to delay it another year. They needed to push it back 2 years. They needed, like, whatever. I've said this to a lot of people. Time was not the limiting factor here. It wasn't. They announced this 7-8 years ago. They had plenty of time to come up with prototypes, to develop different systems that were going to work together. Even if it's just a small team, they had time to figure that out. After The Witcher 3 launched, though, and they got all the DLCs out, and Blood and Wine launched, and everybody loved it, they looked at it, I think, and management said, we need a kick-ass trailer that showcases all of the things we're going to have in this game. So they said, work on it until it's ready, which was the big catchphrase they always put out. And so they started working on this trailer that was going to kick ass and take names, and it took 2 years to get put together, and it gets out there and it's impressive. But in terms of the team's perspective, none of that stuff is working in the engine. Like, they don't have a prototype. They didn't have a game at that point. They had cutscenes that they had written and developed from scratch, but they didn't have a game yet. And so then they turn around and management's like, that's great, we need that, but on the scale of The Witcher 3. And they're like, well, crap, like, we are nowhere near that point. We can't even copy and paste a lot of what we've already done, because it was all custom. Because, like, if you don't know how game development works, if you have a simple sequence where you have a character walking from point A to point B, and then that person interacts with another character, then there's a dialogue sequence. All of that has to be built through systems Those systems are like animation systems that allow you to walk to that location and use the character that you designed. And then you meet somebody, that character has to have AI to be standing there animated in a certain way. And then you start engaging with a dialogue system that refers to dialogue that's saved in all sorts of logs and tables where they can track it all. If you are using a completely custom scripted sequence, all they did was use motion capture to show somebody walking from point A to point B, meeting somebody, and then they put up these fake little dialogue options to pretend as though there was choice. That's very different from the former. Very different from having systems that are dynamic and can be tweaked to make anything work. So realistically, I mean, I think they threw this thing together in the last 2 years, and it was all a result of terrible management that led them to just be like, well, we'll figure it out. We got this kick-ass trailer. We know what the game has to be. We just have to make it happen, and we'll make it happen because we made The Witcher 3. And it's just too bad because there's a real gem of a game in here. You can see the passion and the ideas. It's not there.
Well, the good news is that when all the dust settles, when the game is finally complete, and however many months they start releasing DLC, they get the multiplayer out, which we don't even need to talk about because they were like, it's a fully separate game. Great, make it actually work. Once all the dust is settled and we have the game there and everyone can play it and it's great, no one will care anymore because new stuff will be coming out that looks better, that plays better. Bethesda's going to have new RPGs. Ubisoft's going to have new RPGs. Maybe a new company will sprout up and start making new RPGs that are open world. And with all of that, Cyberpunk will just be seen as a game that launched poorly, and CD Projekt Red needs to get it to at least a working point so people don't lose complete faith in them and then move on to their next project.
I had completely forgotten about the multiplayer.
Yeah,
me too.
They were bragging like it's a totally separate game. Why? Why is it a totally separate game? Why would you even have multiplayer in your brain at this moment when you have this game that if you were working on for 2, like it should not be even a part of their docket, which is why I think a lot of people forgot about it because probably they're not going to have that multiplayer. Probably. I mean, it's probably going to be a cash cow for them, and then that's just going to make them look greedy, and people will get angry at that. So it's stupid. Just move on.
Really, I think they were trying to make their own Grand Theft Auto. And that came with a lot of expectations because they came out and said, we're making this huge expansive world that you're going to play in with custom characters. And then we're going to have a multiplayer where it's separate, like Grand Theft Auto Online. It's separate, but it's going to be huge and expansive and crazy and amazing. And it's all going to be part of this big package. And so I think people got the expectation that we were going to be dealing with Rockstar quality. And I mean, there's a reason Rockstar is Rockstar. Like they are rock stars. No one comes near them in terms of attention to detail, the quality and the polish that they put forward in their games. And I think that Cyberpunk, unfortunately, is a prime example of just why a company like Rockstar is so highly revered. It's not easy.
Not everyone can make Space Station Silicon Valley CD Projekt Red. Look out.
Well said.
Well, you ever played Space Station Silicon Valley?
No.
It's not great. It hasn't aged super well, but it was made by Rockstar before they were Rockstar, and it's pretty fun.
Oh, who knew?
Okay.
Yeah. This has been Jacob Facts. Next week, I'll tell you how to grow a mustache that hangs over your lips. So anytime you eat something on a stick, you get a bunch of hair in your mouth.
That's such an American thing, eating something on a stick.
Oh, that's right. That is just us. Did you know we have, corn dogs, like the little breaded like sausage thing?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Did you know that we do that? I didn't even know this for a little while, but we do that with like the entire body of an eel. You just open up its mouth and then you slide like 3 sticks of butter down it, and then you close it and you shake it up like crazy, and then you open back up its mouth and you pour it in a martini glass, and then you go, healthcare. Never heard of it.
That's what they do on the East Coast. Yeah.
Crab on my fingers. Get me my stick food. Ah.
That bit got lost in the weeds pretty quick.
This has been press start.
So question for Cammy to wrap all of this up. You've platinumed the game, so you've spent a ton of time with it, a lot of brain power dealing with it. Are you at the point where you would play a multiplayer for it?
No.
And why not?
I mean, I'm not a massive fan of multiplayers anyway.
There's
So
that.
that's kind of, there's that. But I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I've completed it. I'm very proud of myself for completing it. I've got all the good stuff in my head and I don't want to go back to it. I don't want to return to the glitches and the T-poses and the awful cop system. I'm at a point where I'm remembering all the good things and we'll leave it there. I don't want to go back. I'm like, done, I've put it down. It's not one of these games where I'm now interested in picking it up again. Like, I've put hundreds of hours into games before, platinum them, and I know I could still go back to it. I'm not like that with Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
It's like, would you say it's like when you have nostalgia for a movie you watched as a kid and you remember all these great parts about it and then you go back and it's super racist and you wonder, what were my parents thinking?
Yeah. Like, if
Is
you
it
watch
like
Grease as a child and you remember all the songs and all the happy stuff, and then you watch it as an adult and go, oh shit, this is like...
Bambi's mom dies?
But Dumbo gets drunk?
What is going on?
Well, I think that's going to do it for us. We want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, so make sure to drop those. Again, like and subscribe so you get notified of all of the new videos that are going to be coming out here. We have a lot of content. A lot of content coming.
Also, coming soon to the channel, we are working on a very special project, all three of us together. It's called Over the Shoulder Camera Watch Jacob Play Donkey Kong Country on his Game Boy Advance. It's a very special project. We're not sure if we're doing it for charity or not, but the concept is as it sounds. It will be a 4K HDR camera over my shoulder while my shirt is off, so you get a nice look at the goods while I play Donkey Kong Country on my Game Boy Advance. And no words will be said. You'll just hear it's a nostalgia stream. Is what we'll call it.
Yeah, we were going back and forth on whether we should invest in red cameras. But I told everybody I think the $250,000 is worth it for this because it's such a gem of an idea, you know.
Well, I think so. Well, it's
Just
like
do it for charity, and then it's every 1,000 or whatever comes in, you take an item of clothing off.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So OnlyFans / Jacob's Tits to get 45% off your subscription to my OnlyFans. Use code Luke's Tits and buy. Put it on screen. $29.99 plus shipping and handling. We've got a great deal for you folks. Ever heard of the ShamWow? No? Well, guess what? Jacob with the let's move on.
Is this channel already derailed? Well, that's gonna do it for us. Thank you for watching. We love you very much. Press start, press stop.
Press start. Oh, I get it.